It's great to speak with you again, Rod. We've done great interviews in the past, and looking forward today to discuss this new topic about why companies struggle with innovation and collaboration. Can you start
Doesn't
by providing a brief
you
background?
again?
Uh, can you start by providing a brief background of yourself?
Yes, my name is Rod Collins. I'm the Director of Innovation with a national management consulting firm in the United States called Optimity Advisors. And we work with companies so that they can manage and change as fast as the world around them. I think one of the biggest problems facing companies today is that the world is changing much faster than their organizations. So we work with companies to put in place processes that can help them to work faster and more creatively.
And why do companies struggle with innovation and collaboration?
Well, the main reason is most companies are not designed for either innovation and collaboration. And this is something that is uppermost in CEOs' minds. As most of our listeners probably realize, IBM every 2 years does a study in which it interviews more than 1,500 CEOs in both the public and the private sector all over the globe. And in their last two studies, two key findings that they found were in the most previous study, CEOs, more than 75% of them identified collaboration as a critical core competency. But what was probably most interesting in that study is more than 50% of them were not exactly sure what they were going to do. In the prior IBM study, when asked what was the most important skill they were looking for in executives, it wasn't the usual analytical skills or individual intelligence, it was creativity. And so on some level, the CEOs are recognizing the need for innovation and for collaboration, but they're not sure what to do. And I think that's because probably the thing that comes to mind when they think innovation is probably inventions. And so you look at things like iPhones and iPads, and they probably look and go, why can't we make stuff like that? When they think of collaboration, they're probably thinking of coordination or cooperation and wondering, what can I do to get my people to behave more cooperatively? I think the reason that they struggle is they're focused on the outputs of innovation and collaboration, but don't understand what are the essential elements that create the circumstances for it to happen. So let's take innovation first. Again, I mentioned that when CEOs think about innovation, they're probably thinking about inventions. But the essential element that makes innovation work is a phenomenon called serendipity. And serendipity is the capacity to connect unusual things. And in order for serendipity to happen, you need a free flow of ideas and free flow of people, and a lot of diverse people bumping into each other who usually don't bump into each other. In traditional companies, that's a problem because as much as we detest silos, they still work in silos. And so every day the finance people interact with the finance people, and every day the marketing people interact with the marketing people. And so that doesn't create much opportunity for serendipity. Contrast with that with a company like Google. Google is as well known, provides free meals on its campuses. And one of the reasons they do that, it's not primarily as an employee benefit, it's to create circumstances for serendipity. Why is it that some of these companies have ping pong tables and tennis courts and all kinds of recreational things? Because those types of gatherings, if you will, which they see as valuable to work, are also places where serendipity can happen. And so the ability to connect unusual things is the soil in which creativity happens. A little quote on this, Steve Jobs defined creativity as the simple act of connecting things, which means any of us can be creative. We don't have to be songwriters. We don't have to be artists. We just have to put ourselves in circumstances where we connect things. And now let's shift over to collaboration. Again, I think what CEOs think of when collaboration comes to mind is cooperation, coordination. And these are things that when hierarchies work well are in place. However, it's not enough in a fast-changing world. Jane McGonigal wrote this book called Reality is Broken a few years back, and she has the best definition of collaboration I've ever encountered. She says, in addition to coordination and cooperation, there's a third element that needs to be present in order for an organization to be collaborative. And that third element is co-creation. And I think Jane would go so far as to say, if you don't have co-creation, you can't have collaboration. And again, hierarchies are greatly handicapped there because the key C word in a hierarchy is not co-creation, it's compliance. It's do what you're told, stick to the policies and procedures, to the way we've done things for decades. And also in hierarchies, it's the people at the top who decide what to do, and everybody else just needs to follow directions. Well, that's not a formula for co-creation. Co-creation means that everybody in the organization needs to be involved in what the strategy will be and how we will execute it. And that's a foreign concept to hierarchies. But again, if you think of a company like Google or a company like Gore and Associates where there are no bosses, or Morningstar, which is a tomato processor in California, there are also no bosses. The only way things get done in these companies is through co-creation. So co-creation is in the fabric of their organization. When companies co-create, you wind up creating the circumstances in which the workers feel highly engaged, because when your voice counts and when you have helped to both set the direction and decide how we're going to do things, that high level of engagement leads also to high levels of collaboration. You combine that again with opportunities for serendipity, then you wind up having the resources that allow organizations to change as fast as the world around them. And as you and I talked about in the last time that we got together, it is the networked architecture that is much more conducive for this than the top-down hierarchy, which is why I believe going forward, the typical organization 10 years from now will not be a top-down hierarchy. It'll be a peer-to-peer network where serendipity happens, lots of co-creation is how things get done, and these organizations will wind up moving much faster than the hierarchies we've known over the past couple of decades.
And how do you help companies that are struggling with innovation and collaboration?
Well, there's a couple of things that need to be done. The first is, we call it resetting the 3 M's: resetting the managers, resetting the meetings, and resetting the measures. So with respect to managers, what kills innovation is, in hierarchies, too many people have the authority to kill good ideas and keep bad ideas alive. And so what we do is work with organizations. You don't have to eliminate the managers, but you do have to eliminate the expanse of their sovereignty. And managers in networks are coaches, facilitators, and their job is to help groups come to the best solutions that they can based upon their collective intelligence. And so the manager's role shifts from being the one who sets the direction to one helping the organization and its workers to let the best direction emerge from their collective thinking. The second resetting is resetting the meetings. Meetings need to be places where collective intelligence can be aggregated and can be leveraged. So it means getting everybody together in the same place at the same time and doing it with some frequency so that there is iteration as we are co-creating what we're doing. An example of a place where this is done very well is in agile software development, where they work in sprints, where they have oftentimes daily stand-up meetings that are oftentimes no longer than 15 to 20 minutes. But everyone working on the project is meeting on a daily basis, checking in on what's working, what's not working, and how can we support each other. So it's very, simply that, just getting everybody in the same room at the same time. And the third one has to do with resetting the measures. And what's happening there is we need to shift from measures where people are accountable just to single supervisors who oftentimes are working at cross purposes with other supervisors. You want to set up a discipline of peer accountability. What drives co-creation is when workers feel that they are all each other's mutual customers. So an example of where that's done well, as I mentioned, Morningstar. Again, this is a company that doesn't have any supervisors. And the way things get done there is at the beginning of each year, they craft what are called colleague letters of understanding. So the different people who are working together in terms of producing the tomato products that they do work out specific metrics where each of them promises to deliver what needs to be delivered to the others to whom they work. They measure those frequently and they're held accountable to them, and that affects their compensation. And that structure of peer accountability works quite well. Morningstar is the world's largest tomato processor and has been operating in this structure for about 25 years. So it's a structure that can work. So those are the things that companies can do. Again, resetting the 3 M's, the managers, the meetings, and the measures.
Thanks, Rod. And do you have any final recommendations?
Yes, build a network, not a hierarchy.
Great. And did we cover everything you wanted to discuss?
Yes. I again, keep in mind, if you want to innovation and collaboration, then you need to set up your organization so serendipity happens and people are co-creating the work.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Dustin.